Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Gracious God, today we honor those who have defended our country since its creation. We pray that you will bless them abundantly for their brave service and dedication. Please heal their wounds, whether they be to mind, body, or spirit. Extend your blessing to those who currently wear the uniform of our nation. Protect them against harm and bring them home safely to their families. Turn the hearts of our leaders and our enemies to the work of justice and a harvest of peace. In your name we pray. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. I'd again like to welcome you all to the Stillwater Veterans Memorial. The memorial was dedicated 20 years ago today. A lot of people who came before me invested a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into making this a reality. Fundraising, community awareness, and elbow grease transformed the former site of Stillwater High School into a memorial that honors those who answered their nation's call. Whether in time of peace or time of war, this site honors all who believed in something larger than themselves. We honor them today. In the 20 years of our existence, we've been honored by the presence of dozens of patriots who have supported our vision. Today, we're blessed to have several dignitaries in attendance. We wish to thank them and recognize them for their attendance. I ask those who are being acknowledged to raise their hands, and I'm also going to ask the Stillwater Veteran Board members to please stand up, be recognized for what you do. First of all, we're honored to have Minnesota Congressman Betty McCollum attending. There she is. Thank you for attending. Congresswoman McCollum sits on both the Defense Appropriations Committee as well as the Interior Appropriations Committee, and we're honored to have her here today. We'd also like to recognize Representative Jay Zhang, Representative Josiah Hill, County Commissioner Bethany Cox, Sheriff Dan Starry, Stillwater Police Chief Brian Mueller, and Captain Hunter Julian. We'd also like to recognize the amazing volunteers that make this event so meaningful. First of all, our color bearer, Signalman Mike Wilhelmy, anthem singer Michelle Rose, the Croy Chordsman, guest speaker Herb Reckinger, Master Gardener Karen Miller. Is Karen here? We are absolutely blessed to have her do what she does. Also, Bill Crucial, a Navy veteran who was a corpsman to the Marine Corps in the South Pacific. He served on both Peleliu and Okinawa. I think he's a member of the Cordsmen. Thank you, Kevin. Colonel Mark Weens. Is Mark here? Mike McGowan. And then I had already asked the Veterans Memorial Board members to stand. I'd now like to introduce the Croy Cordsmen and invite you to enjoy the patriotic music they provide.
Our first song is the Armed Forces Medley, also known as the Armed Forces Salute, in today's recognition as a collection of official songs of the armed services. If you are a veteran of one of these services, please stand and be recognized when your song is sung.
From the rising of the sun till the battle's fought and won, we will fight for the right and defend our country. We're always ready for the call. We place our trust in Thee. Through howling gale and shot and shell to win our victory. Semper Paratus is our guide, our pledge, our motto too. We're always ready, do or die. I, Coast Guard, we fight for you.
The Marines.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we'll fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine.
The Navy.
Anchors aweigh, my boys, anchors aweigh. Farewell to college joys, we sail at break of day. To our last night ashore, drink to the foam. Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home.
The Army.
First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the Army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the Army goes rolling along. For it's high, high, hey, the Army's on its way. Count out the cadence loud and strong. For where'er we go, you will always know that the Army goes rolling along.
The Air Force.
Oh, off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, soon to beat our thunder. Atta boys, give them a gun, give them a gun. Down we dive, spouting our flame from under. Off we go, hell of a roar. We live in fame, we're down in flame. Oh, nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force. America, 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 America.
For our final number, we'd like to offer up one that would be a little newer This one was written originally by one of the gentlemen of the Statler brothers, and it commemorates the veterans that were not coming back from the Vietnam conflict, the Vietnam War, and it's from the wall.
I saw her from a distance as she walked up to the wall. Walked up to the wall, then she had a fine moon as the tears began to fall. Took out pen and paper as to trace her memory. Trace her memory to come to heaven and words said were she looked on them. The words she said were these. She said, Lord, my boy was special, and he meant so much to me, meant so much to me. Oh, I'd love to see him just one more time, you see. All I have are the memories and the moments to recall. But Lord, could you tell him he's more than a name on a wall? They really miss the family being home on Christmas Day. Being home on Christmas Day. Died forgotten country in a place so far away, away. I remember just a little boy playing war since he was three. Playing war was he, but for this time I know that he's not coming home. Lord, I know that this time he's not coming home to me. She said, Lord, my boy was special, and he meant so much to me, meant so much to me. Oh, I'd love to see him, but I know it just can't be. I know, so I thank you for the memories and the moments to recall. But Lord, could you tell him he's more than a name on the wall? Yes, Lord, could you tell him he's more than a name on the wall?
Thank you, gentlemen. What is a veteran? In the most basic sense, a veteran's a citizen who raised their right hand, took an oath to this nation. The oath of enlistment is only 70 words, but it's essentially a blank check they wrote, payable to the United States of America. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. There are between 16 and 17 million living veterans in the United States today. They come from every state and territory, and their ages range from 18 to centenarians. I had to look that word up. It means people over 100. We lost a Navy veteran last year who was 110. The year he was born was 1914. That year, a loaf of bread would have set you back 6 cents, but it wasn't available pre-sliced for another 14 years. You could send a letter from Key West, Florida to Fairbanks, Alaska for 2 cents. The price of a Model T touring car was $490. A custom 3,000 square foot home could be built for $3,500. The Panama Canal opened that year, and there were still 1 million living Civil War veterans. Those well-versed in the Civil War know the history of Company B of the 1st Minnesota Volunteer Infantry Regiment. Citizens of Stillwater and surrounding communities answered Abraham Lincoln's calls for troops to defend the Union against secessionist forces in the South. Troops raised within sight of this memorial fought at Bull Run, Antietam, Fredericksburg, and Gettysburg. In that latter engagement, the 1st Minnesota cemented their place in history on July 2nd, 1863, outside Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The 1st Minnesota occupied a reserve position atop Cemetery Ridge. 3 of their companies had been assigned to skirmish duty, so available troops numbered only 262 officers and men. A Union general, Daniel Sickles, had been assigned to cover a position supporting Little Round Top and the Union's left flank. Sickles disobeyed the order, moved his men to a nearby peach orchard. This afforded him higher ground, but it compromised the Union line. With the flank exposed, the Confederates under General James Longstreet charged through the resulting gap. Soldiers of Humphreys' division of Sickles' Corps broke and ran, scrambling past the position of the 1st Minnesota. 2 battle-tested brigades, one from Florida, one from Alabama, poured through the void left by the retreating troops. Atop Little Round Top, Union General Hancock saw the 1st Minnesota waiting in reserve and asked Colonel William Colville, Jr. of Red Wing who those men were. Colonel Colville answered, "We're the 1st Minnesota." General Hancock pointed to the Confederate attackers. He asked if Colville could see the attackers. He was pointing to the battle flags carried by the rebels. When Colville told him he could, Hancock said, "Then go take them. Take them, take those flags." The 1st Minnesota left the safety of their positions, charging down the embankment into hell on earth. They ran through blinding smoke and tangled vines that clawed at their feet and legs. Their olfactory senses were assaulted by the smell of gunpowder, fresh blood, and the dead. The screaming of wounded men, dying horses, and the maniacal rebel yell melded with the concussion of cannon and the crack of 1,000 rifles. Alan Carpenter, a member of the 1st Minnesota, chronicled the event in a letter home. Bullets whistled past us. Shells screeched over us. Canister and grape shot fell about us. Comrade after comrade dropped from the ranks, but on the battle went. The Minnesotans charged the Confederates at a fortuitous moment when the Rebs were crossing a dry creek bed. The 1st Minnesota poured withering fire into the first line of rebels until they were pushed back to the 2nd skirmish line. Their daring bought enough time for the Union to bring up reinforcements to hold the flank. Before everyone learned the name Shelby Foote from Ken Burns' PBS Civil War series, the Dean of Civil War Historians was Bruce Catton. Catton summed up the accomplishment of the Minnesotans in this way. The whole war had suddenly come to a focus in this smoky hollow with a few score Westerners trading their lives for the time the Army needed. They didn't capture the flag that Hancock had asked them to, but they still had their own flag, and they had a great name. Within 15 minutes, 215 of the 262 men who began the charge were either dead or wounded. Colonel Colville and all his field-grade officers fell. In researching this, I struggled to come up with a word that adequately described the beating the 1st Minnesotans took. The word carnage comes close. The 1st Minnesota was mauled on July 2nd, 1863. Only 47 Minnesotans left the field unscathed that day. The charge produced a casualty rate of 82%, the largest suffered by any regiment in the war. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph B. Mitchell, in his book, Decisive Battles of the Civil War, opined that there is no other unit in the history of warfare that ever made such a charge and then stood its ground sustaining such losses. Through the lens of history and the passage of 160 years, we're tempted to think of those soldiers as somehow different than us. They weren't. They weren't. The soldiers who saved the Union that day came from right here. The chief quartermaster, Mark Downey, was from Stillwater. Most of the Company B was. Even looking at the field grade officer roles at the regimental level, consider their home addresses. St. Anthony, 18 miles away. St. Paul, 12 miles away. Minneapolis, 26. Red Wing, 34. Hastings, 18. Faribault, 54. The field grade officer who traveled the furthest to enlist was from New Ulm, 93 miles away. A lot of company grade officers and most soldiers came from right here. In that era, logging was the dominant industry in the region. The St. Croix was a superhighway moving lumber to build an expanding nation. The city of Chicago was built by pine coming from Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. The St. Croix Valley was a bustling place in the 1860s, and those drawn here for employment in the big woods answered President Lincoln's call for volunteers. As they went into service, the 1st Minnesota wore red wool shirts and black wool pants. When Stillwater schools were created, students chose black and red as school colors to honor those who helped save the Union. To this day, when Stillwater athletes compete on the track, field, court, diamond, mat, or ice, they wear the red and black, burnished into history in the 1860s. I can only speak for the football program, but we make sure all football players hear about the symbolism of those colors. We have big shoes to fill and a legacy we're proud to uphold. The reason I've gone down this historical rabbit hole is to say that the men who saved the Union in 1863 would have been your neighbors had they been born 120 years later. They would have been the educators that taught your kids how to read, the carpenters who built your house, or the mechanics who fixed your car. One of them would have been the clerk at Brine's who sells you your Thanksgiving turkey. In short, they were us. Veterans are ordinary people who have done extraordinary things. They're simply people who answered the call of their nation to serve. In peacetime, they joined for training, job security, money for college, or simply to be part of something larger than themselves. When the shadow of war darkened our horizons for 250 years, Americans have always answered the call. Some willingly and some grudgingly. Some were drafted, some volunteered. Some joined to make things right with the legal system, while some lied about their age to enlist early. Civil War history is replete with stories of boys barely out of grade school serving. Tales of World War I and World War II volunteers who altered documents or forged parental permission slips to enlist would fill the wing of a library. Dan Bullock of Brooklyn, New York, doctored his birth certificate to enlist in the Marine Corps at age 14. He completed boot camp at Parris Island, South Carolina, December of '68. He arrived in Vietnam in May 1969. He was killed in his first week in country. The night he was killed, he had been initially tasked with cleaning duty. He was reassigned to replace a Marine who had been wounded earlier in the week. On June 7th, 1969, a North Vietnamese soldier threw a satchel charge into Dan's bunker, killing him and 2 other Marines. I don't know where this country gets people like Dan, but I thank God we get them. Rest in peace, devil dog. In conclusion, today we celebrate all those throughout our history who have served, whether they entered service as wide-eyed idealists, patriotic volunteers, or were summoned by a draft notice. We owe them. Whether in peacetime or wartime, they all gave a piece of themselves to this nation. Most of them made it back safely. Some of our finest people did not. A lot of those who returned home did so as very different people. To those who have ever served this nation, we extend a heartfelt thank you. You truly are America's best. Thank you. It is now my honor to introduce our guest speaker, Herb Reckinger. He grew up in South St. Paul, but has resided in Cottage Grove since 1974. He's a veteran of the Naval Reserve. He belongs to the Washington County Historical Society, as well as the South Washington Heritage Society. He served on the Washington County Historic Courthouse Advisory Board for several terms. In 2014, he became involved in the Wall of Faces project. The aim of the project is to provide at least one photo of every person appearing on the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C. He continues his work for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Given his success connecting pictures of Minnesota casualties with those listed on the wall, he's been asked to cross the nation with the traveling Wall That Heals. Half dozen times a year, Herb packs his bags and goes on the road to assist the Vietnam Veteran Memorial Fund site managers across the country. We are thankful for his service to the families of the fallen, and it's a great pleasure to have him speak to us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Herb Reckinger.
Thank you, Bruce. This will just take a second. This is all in regards to the Vietnam War and our 58,281 casualties, which includes 8 lady nurses. This year we passed the last anniversaries of the war. So think about this. For over 50 years, they've all been gone. I've watched this several years ago at the traveling wall as it made its way down Panel 2 West to Panel 1 West, where the war ends. A lot of us realize 50 years is a long time. The first ending of the war was on January 27, 1973, the treaty. 6 days before that, Keith Christopherson of South St. Paul and Richard Weir of Mankato were on board the aircraft carrier, the Ranger. Their cable had a malfunction as they launched. Their plane went to the bottom of the Gulf of Tonkin, in front of 150 other sailors. And on that day, Keith and Richard became our last the Minnesota's last casualties of Vietnam. And they also became our last 2 missing in actions. I thought the Gulf of Tonkin was maybe as deep as Mille Lacs, but it's almost as deep as where the Titanic is. And then came this year, 1975, 50 years ago, with the fall of Saigon. But that wasn't the end of it. If you look at those 4 guys that died on April 29, 1975, there's still a number of lines below you. Those were 4 Marines. They were in 2 different incidences. One was out by the Saigon airport, and the last 2 Marines were in helicopters circling aircraft carriers during the evacuation. But there's still 40 more names below them, guys. These are the last. That happened in the Mayaguez incident. It didn't even happen off of Vietnam. It happened off the coast of Cambodia under Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge soldiers. They took the Mayaguez It was a merchant ship, a supply ship going to our good ally, Thailand. And they boarded that ship, took these guys over. They weren't Marines, they were merchant Marines. And a couple days later, they sent out an Air Force crew and Air Force SPs, 22 of them. Their chopper crashed on May 13. But that's still not the end of it. 2 days later, and with maybe better intelligence, we would have known that these Mayagez guys were taken off of Koh Tang Island and were already in safe hands. But they still went ahead with this mission. And we lost 18 more that day. Gotta look here. Okay, there was 18 died. 16 of them, or 6 of them were 18-year-olds, and it produced our nation's last 5 missing in actions. So like Bruce alluded to, I've been a volunteer picture gatherer since 2014. In 2021, I was asked to be a cadre for the Wall That Heals. I was a volunteer, like maybe some of you other folks, when that same wall was here in 2019 on one of your old football fields. It's a VVMF that I work with, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. And that's the organization that started in 1979 with Jan Scruggs, an infantry guy, young infantry guy out of Vietnam. And he formed this organization. It had to be called Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund because it's a nonprofit. And in 1982, exactly 53 years ago, the wall in Washington, D.C. opened. And it took the VVMF a few years to figure out that not everybody can get to D.C. So they started out with a 5-foot version. What I mean by 5 foot is 5 feet tall in the middle. That started in 1996, and then they wanted the real thing. They wanted it corrected. There was many mistakes on that wall. Typically, somebody come up to a guy like Tim Tates, and a lady would say to him, "This wall is just great, but this is not the way my brother's name is spelled in D.C. on the wall." So that's pretty heavy. That's pretty serious. So they wanted those wall names all corrected, and they came up with a 3/4 version. It's 7.5 feet tall in the middle. It's 375 feet long. That's what goes out on the road today. So we go to these sites, we set it up with volunteers that are only going to do this probably one time in their life, and they set up this beautiful replication of a national memorial, and it's awesome to see these people. Okay, I started this work in March of 2014. A year later, in June, we became the 5th state to completely have at least one photo for each of our young men on the wall. We don't have any ladies from Minnesota. They come from other states. And in 2021, I was asked to be a cadre to travel with the wall. 2018. So as far as Washington County, on the Wall of Faces, we have 22 that were KIA from our county. 2 of them are missing in action, Melvin Kreck from Marine on the St. Croix and William Crockett from Cottage Grove. You'll find on that Wall of Faces website that there are 1,074 Minnesotans, but some of these guys listed different states and towns for their Homer records. So along with the Minnesota Memorial, there's 48 more guys on that wall than are stated on the wall in D.C. So that gives us 1,122 guys from our state of Minnesota gave their lives. Lives who were stolen from us. No different than our Vietnam guys over here, or any of our other conflicts. They were stolen from us. So there are still 33 MIAs from Minnesota out of the 58,281. There are still 1,545 MIAs from our country. I couldn't come out here with showing you one of the pictures on the Wall of Faces. This is Albert Trudeau. He was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He was killed in action in '71. His remains were returned to his family this year after 54 years. That's incredible, and this last year was an incredible year. 4 sets of remains were returned. We only average 1 to 2 a year now. That part of Vietnam will never be over with, so here he is, Albert Trudeau. You can come up and look at him when this is over. So in almost 12 years, I've worked with numerous families, libraries, historical societies, schools and universities, cemeteries, and funeral homes. I appreciate anybody who's helped me. People who submits a yearbook that doesn't even know what they've done. They've helped us. I used to make repeated trips to the Historical Society. I don't know how many I made, but sometimes for the same person, to find that you can't find any information or a school they went to in the Twin Cities. I go back home and try and find the death of one of their siblings or their parents, and then go back to try and find out that obituary that would reveal to me the name that their sisters got when they got married. Of course, some of the biggest helpers to me are the nephews and nieces. So most of these guys didn't have their own kids. So it's nephews and nieces that never met these guys, never overlapped with these guys, that are probably the greatest family help to me. I had a lot to learn. There were so many coincidences, anomalies, and almost miracles. The stories on the wall of faces are too numerous. I could be here for weeks. So, in learning a lot, I found that John Schell, he came from Liverpool, England, before he came to America and was killed in Vietnam. He was a guitar player for the Hideaways. They played at the Cavern Club more than the early Beatles. Dan O'Loughlin came from Eveleth, Minnesota. He played hockey for the Eveleth Bears and once scored 4 goals in one game, 3 of them in 29 seconds. That's in his yearbook. Henry Hill, what a great guy he was. He graduated from Anoka. His friend Don Houston had me do a writing which I transcribed, and it's on Henry's page. You realize what a great guy he was, and what he meant not only to Anoka but to Mankato State, where he was just a stellar athlete in track. Hedwig Orlowski, she was Polish. Yes, she was Polish. I found her sophomore picture at Hap Arnold High School in Wiesbaden, Germany. Her parents were Bronislaw and Zuzanne, not Suzanne, Zuzanne Orlowski. They were in the Polish Army in World War II. At some point after that war, one or both of them parents joined our U.S. Army, and she ends up going to school in Wiesbaden. What were all these kids doing in these foreign schools? They were joining the service. They were following in their parents' footsteps. David Kern, he lived up in, he went to Roseville High School, Ramsey High School once in a while. He was kicked out of orphanages. He was abandoned. If you left your car unlocked in the wintertime on North Rice Street, there was a chance you'd find David Kern sleeping in your back seat. A family took him in, and he went on and joined the Army, and he died himself. I replicated a Gareth Hebert writing. It was Oliver Town. Some of the people my age will remember Gareth Hebert in Oliver Town. I put that to his website. David Kern has had hundreds of people write in about him. If you ever want to read a beautiful remembrance, Angela Krebsbach wrote a great writing for her father, Ronald Krebsbach. They were from White Bear Lake. Douglas Merrill, his name was added to this memorial in 2016. I want to say your vets groups here do a wonderful job. I was at that Memorial Day ceremony. Doug's sisters were here. Sadly, Doug's sister, Judine, passed away 2 years ago. At that same event in 2016, I met Lloyd Keene's sister, and there was a writing in a book called The Faces Behind the Names by their mother, Viola. She wrote a writing about Lloyd in the 90s, and I got her permission to reproduce that writing on Lloyd's page. Lloyd was a farm kid that lived pretty close to Withrow. Mabel, Minnesota was a small town in southern Minnesota, southern Fillmore County. They lost 2 guys, Harold Husker and Alan Dunneman. And when I went to look up Harold Husker in the newspaper, Mabel had a newspaper back then. They never got over 1,000 people in that town. Both guys were on the front page of their weekly paper. They died a day apart. It's just almost crazy, some of the coincidences you run into. Our Catholic schools around here all sacrifice greatly too. St. Thomas, Bernard's, Cretin, Hill, and over in Minneapolis, De La Salle. Kerry Gossman was from Fillmore County too. He was from Wayland, Minnesota. It's the next town down the river from Lanesboro. Kerry wanted to join at 17. So your parents have to sign for you. If you lose your kid in that situation, you have added guilt. So he goes over to Germany. He turns 18. He gets sent to Vietnam. He gets a letter. He sends a letter to his mom. It says, "Mom, I don't know what it is, but I don't think I'm coming back from Vietnam alive. I don't know what it is, but something just keeps telling me." This is an 18-year-old. 2 weeks later, he crawls into a sleeping bag with a poison snake and never wakes up. That last letter is reproduced by his sister on his page, and you can read his handwriting yourself. And then the wall was in Egan in 2022, and his sister Connie lives 100 miles away, east of Rochester. I told her it was coming. She went to work at the setup. So when she came for all that work, it's the hardest working day there, I informed her that she could carry her brother's panel if she wished. She did. And when she got out there after she cleaned her tears off herself, she had my daughter-in-law take a picture, and you can look at it on his website. There's like a light shaft. This is at noon. I don't know how you could produce that kind of light, but that light comes out of her hand and passes through the first syllable of his last name. He's on panel 6 West, line 2. When I was here in 2019, Harold Smith came, or not Harold Smith. Harold Smith was on the wall. One of his brothers came, and he was so emotional that day, it was like it happened yesterday for him. So these guys really carry a lot, these family members. Another guy came up to me, and he asked for a name. I said, "Is your friend? Did you go to school with him? Did you serve with him?" He said, "I served with him." You always ask, "Can I show you a picture?" Because sometimes a fellow serviceman can't do that. He wanted to see the picture. He looked at it. He said, "I forgot what he looked like." And he couldn't talk anymore, and he just ended up walking off. Okay, we do have one of the last guys on May 15. His name is Richard Rivenberg. And he's on the last line on the wall. He's a left-hand name. And he wrote a letter to his family. It was the last letter he would ever send home. He would be one of the missing. They discovered 4 or 5 sets of remains in 2012. So for 37 years, his family never had those remains. So those remains come home 37 years later. The last line in that last letter in 1975 said, "Mom and Dad, don't get tired of waiting for me." So I just want to thank everybody for all this. This is just an important time, I feel, 1975. So the best thing we can do is remember all these guys. I have some business cards for instructions how to go on Wall of Faces if you're not sure. So thanks, everybody, and great thanks to all you veterans and your families, too, that had to put up with you guys being gone. Sometimes they had to put up with you when you were home. So anyway, we appreciate all you guys. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Herb. Our mission at the Stillwater Veterans Memorial is to honor those who have served this nation. I'm happy to announce that our Veterans Day 2025 class of inductees is a large one. 18 pavers are being dedicated today. At this time, I invite Corey Butner to the podium to announce the names of those we honor today. After Corey announces the veteran honored, we ask that the veteran's family stand and be recognized.
Good afternoon. We have a couple of the pavers that their family preferred to push it off until Memorial Day so that more of their family can be here present, and that's the King family. But for this year's Veterans Day pavers to be installed, Army Jordan Charles Magler served in Afghanistan. Thomas A. Junker, Army, Vietnam. Robert F. Rafferty, Air Force, Vietnam. Eugene W. Dirks, Army, Vietnam. Kenneth L. Peterson, Navy, World War II. David E. Rykow, Army, Vietnam. William F. Rode, Army, Operation Iraqi Freedom. And then we have the Nygren family. I believe there's 5 pavers being installed. Russell K. Nygren, Army, Vietnam. Robert A. Nygren, Marines, Korean War. Carolyn Jacoby Nygren, Army, Vietnam. And Marshall T. Crawford, Merchant Marines, 1945 to 1953. Kaylee R. Sova, Navy, 2002 to 2023. Bruce A. Peterson, Army, Vietnam. Igel H. Madsen, Army, 1940 to 1945. Ralph Jacobson, Army, Korean War. On behalf of the Stillwater Veterans Memorial, we thank you for your support of our memorial, and we thank you for your service.
Thank you, Corey. I would now like to invite Michelle Rose to the podium to sing America the Beautiful.
Beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim feet who stood in passion stress, a thoroughfare of freedom beat across the wilderness. America, God led thine every flaw, confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in love.
Thank you, Michelle. To close the ceremony, I'd like to close with a heartfelt thanks to the folks who are assembled here. Putting on an event of this size and scope takes a lot of cooperation from a lot of different people and agencies. First of all, thank you for coming out. Living on the 45th parallel in the middle of November, you're kind of rolling the dice with weather. I've been doing this a few years and I don't remember a nicer day. I don't even have to have gloves on up here. So that was really nice. Thank you for your support of a worthy cause. Secondly, I'd like to thank our speaker, Herb Reckinger, for not only speaking to us today, but for the work he does to bring to life and put a face to the names etched in cold black granite. Thank you, Herb. I thank Johnny's TV for their AV support, Valley Access Television for helping spread the word of our mission, the Bayport American Legion Color Guard, our anthem singer, Michelle Rose, and the Croix Chordsmen for their contributions. Thanks again to Master Gardener Karen Miller for her work throughout the year. Members will come down here and just drive through, does anything need to be done? Do we need to pick up garbage? Do we need to blow snow? Is there anything we need to do? Anytime things can be grown down here, you'll find her down here working. So if you're ever here in the summer, this is an absolutely beautiful site, and that is due to Karen Miller, so we thank her for that. I'd like to thank Mike Wilhelmy for posting our colors today. I'd like to thank all of our elected officials in attendance too. Whether you serve at a local, state, or federal level, I know how busy you are. Your support of our mission is appreciated more than you know. We thank Dunn Brothers Coffee for warming us up and keeping all of you alert even during my remarks. A huge thank you to Kowalski's for providing the best store-bought cookies I've ever had. Please make sure you take one home if there are any left. I think I speak for all board members in saying we don't really need the calories. We don't need to be tempted by them at home, so please take them home. Let's see. I'd also like to thank both the Washington County Sheriff's Department and the Stillwater Police. Thank you, gentlemen. They do a difficult job and make East Central Minnesota a great place to live. Please make sure your officers get home tonight, gentlemen. Finally, one of our chief sources of revenue is paver sales. We're all volunteers, but maintaining this space costs money. We have an ambitious expansion plan to increase the space we have for veteran recognition. If you're interested in immortalizing your hero, please pick up a brochure. It'll provide you with the information needed to commemorate their service. Typically at this point, I'd ask you to drive safely on your way home. Today, I'm going to invite you to attend the Veterans Film Festival at the Washington County Courthouse right behind you. It's a statewide effort honoring the service and sacrifice of Minnesota veterans. After watching the film, then drive home safely. Your support of our mission is critical to what we do. Thanks again for attending. Your being here matters. It really does matter. Please stand by for the retiring of the colors. Signalman Wilhelmy, retire the colors. Order. Arms. Thank you. Please be safe on your way home.